Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good stuff. And joining us, of course, here today is the one and the only Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how are you doing today, sir?
John, it's going to be a great week. I'm very excited to be here. It was my mom's birthday yesterday. She's a great 82. She acts like she's 60. I think things are, they're just looking up every other day.
Rob,
or every day, really.
I could not help but notice, and I want everybody else to notice it too. Tell us the story behind that badass shirt of yours.
Well, as you know, I think it's a habit I picked up from the late, great John Schnepp. I love my geeky t-shirts. I'm always on the lookout, and especially love geeky t-shirts that somehow combine two things together in not a ironic or funny way, but in a cool way. And when I saw the Enterprise, the Enterprise that was introduced in Star Trek 4, when I saw that combined with the Top Gun logo, I'm like, bruh, I had to have it. And this was actually one of those t-shirt ads that pops up on Facebook, because the analytics know how to get me. And it was like a Pavlovian response. I didn't even think about it. I'm just like, click, here's my credit card number.
Here we go. And so that's the model 1701.
1701A. Now, the A was introduced at the end of Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, because as we know in Star Trek 3, the original refit Enterprise introduced in the motion picture was destroyed during the Genesis Planet incident.
Just a very timely shirt to wear today, Rob, because you might think we have some Top Gun and some Star Trek to talk about today.
You know, you might think.
You might think. Anyway, guys, I hope you all are having an absolutely fabulous day. I hope you guys had a terrific weekend as well. I had a great weekend. Rob, I was just telling Rob that our friend Cody Miller, of course, Olympic gold medalist, big YouTuber, and of course, Rob and mine's co-host for our show, our podcast, Best Movie, Worst Movie. We've been waiting for about a year now to get a new season of that going, because we want to wait until, Cody's got the Olympics coming up. We want him to be able to get that behind him. But he was in town. He flew in from Indiana yesterday. Got to hang out with him here last night. It was good to see him. So yes, keep your eyes open, guys. A little bit later this year, Best Movie, Worst Movie will come back, and we'll look forward to having him back there for that as well. Anyway, guys, here's how today's show's going to go. We got a number of things to talk about here on the show today, and we're going to break the show into two parts. The first half of the show, we're going to take some predetermined topics, and then the second half of the show, we're going to take your live comments and questions that you guys send in using the tip link that's in the description of the video below. Now, before we get to our main topics, let's talk about a couple things off the top, and the first thing is this. Rob, I'm going to tell you that, I mentioned in the spoiler videos that I have enjoyed Falcon and Winter Soldier up until now. I've enjoyed it, but I haven't loved it. I certainly have preferred WandaVision up until this point. But then that newest episode hit, which I think actually, I contend, I think it's arguable that one episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier might potentially at least be in the discussion of the best single episode of anything Disney Plus has put out so far. I mean, it was a nearly perfect episode of television. It had incredible drama. It had wonderful character work. It had heart-beating and heartbreaking action. It had a stunning ending. It just gave multiple dimensional layers and all the characters going on there. Several huge moments. It was incredible. And of course, it left us just wanting more. With that last final image of John Walker holding Cap's shield, covered in blood. It just created an image that I'll never forget. But it made me wondering about what's going to happen. Where are we going next? Well, a new trailer dropped this morning for Falcon and Winter Soldier Episode 5. And it is great. Now, most of the trailer is about 1 minute and 25 seconds long. Most of it is just replaying footage that have been in other episodes. But then it comes down to this scene where the three of them are facing off against each other, and you hear Sam say, "We don't want anybody else to get hurt." And then a close-up shot on John Walker, Walmart Captain America, saying, "You don't want to do this." And then the camera going to Bucky, just a solemn, serious face looking down. Then his eyes look up and says, "Yeah, we do." And I was just like, why? Like, Robin, I just watched that now. I just watched the trailer right now. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm looking at my watch. How close is it to Friday? The countdown clock has got to start. Dude, it was amazing. And it's all set up by how great that last episode was. Truly a phenomenal episode. And this is the type of little tease for what's coming up that we all want to see. I love this little trailer spot. Rob, I haven't had a chance to ask you yet. To me, that was a turning point episode for Falcon and Winter Soldier. While there have certainly been moments in Falcon and Winter Soldier that I've loved up until now, it's been fairly pedestrian. Like, I'm enjoying it. I like it. Some great moments and scenes. But to me, this last episode was the fulfillment of the promise of what this show could be. And I loved it, which just makes this new teaser, even more exciting to me. But Rob, what did you think coming out of that last episode and that last scene now we see in this trailer about, yeah, we do want to do this? How much does that hype you up?
Dude, I have to say that, this show to me has been giving me everything that I wanted. And, there's a lot of people that talked about the politicization of the show when the police stopped them when they were visiting Isaiah. And I thought that what I love about this show is the questions that it poses about the MCU itself.
Yes.
What is the state of the MCU's world? And we've only really ever seen it through the eyes of the Avengers, but now we're seeing the broader implications. And I think that for me, in a fictional universe, when they're talking about how the fictional universe works, such as what is the impact to the world when half the population that disappeared, that the world acclimated to, suddenly shows back up on your doorstep. And I'm like, this is grand world building. And we're seeing it. We saw a little bit of it beginning with WandaVision. We're seeing more of it now. And I find it that's fascinating. But then they're getting into the implications of things about, once again, what the Sokovia Accords brought up in Civil War. What is the responsibility that metahumans have to the greater good? What happens when, you're dealing with a terrorist organization like the Flag Smashers who have killed civilians and then turn around and kill Battlestar? This show is grappling with great storytelling issues, great world building issues that have broader ramifications for us, the viewing audience. It makes us crunch these difficult ethical questions over in our minds. Yeah. And to me, what's so great is that as fantasy entertainment goes, this is top drawer fantasy entertainment. And I'm hoping, unlike, say, WandaVision, which didn't stick the landing, what they've brought up, they've taken a character, the John Walker U.S. agent character. A lot of people, I've been reading a lot of things about, maybe this isn't the Captain America we want, but he's the Captain America we deserve now. This is some heady stuff, and I'm there for it, John. I really have been loving this show. It's been on an upward trajectory for me, and I was shocked by the end of this last episode.
Yeah,
that final shot was disturbing, but it made me think that they killed John Walker's, his man at arms.
Yeah.
They'd been in Afghanistan. How long had they fought together? And John Walker is already dealing with, the fact that he's musing over, would you take that serum? He's grappling with the ethical considerations of what he's done. He probably was suffering from PTSD from his time in the military.
I'm sure, yeah.
This is a really interesting show, and I think it's another triumph for Marvel.
One of the really interesting things about it, too, is that you mentioned you were horrified at that final image, right? I was saying on the spoiler discussion, I also felt my heart breaking for John Walker, because this is what I love. Every character, whether it's Zemo, the Dora Milaje, Carly, John Walker, everybody has multiple dimensions and multiple layers. John Walker, at the end of it, he wanted to do good. And when it all started out, he wanted to live up to this ideal. He wanted to be this, that, but and we're finding out more and more, Rob, that Dr. Erskine, who's, the one who created Steve in the first place, the one who created the super soldier serum, now we understand why he was so meticulous about finding the one true character person who could do this. Because, you also look through the show, and I looked up now to this new trailer of him facing off against Sam and Bucky and saying, you don't want to do this. I felt my heart breaking for him because his intentions were good, but whether it's a mixture of PTSD, his own internal brokenness, and then throughout this show so far, we've seen him being rejected and failing the whole time. Sam and Bucky reject him. Guys are spitting in his face. He's fighting Dora Milaje, who beat his ass, and he's like, they weren't even super soldiers.
How great is the portrayal of Dora Milaje?
Oh, F me. Amazing.
And Florence, who plays, I say Ayo, but I think that's a mispronunciation of the character's name. But Ayo. She, first of all, when she's first introduced, I don't think I've seen a more beautiful woman on screen before. When she's helping Bucky out. I mean, she's got such an ethereal presence. But man, did they kick ass.
Oh, they were so good. But Zemo, right?
Oh,
you're finding out more and more as John Walker devolves. You're realizing Zemo's philosophy is actually correct. Carly, she's a villain in the show, but you like Sam says to her, your cause is right. Your cause is right. I just don't like the way you're doing it. The Dora Milaje, you're messing up Sam and Bucky's plans. Well, of course we are. That dude killed our king. So everyone has these multiple dimensions and motivations that are all coming to a head. And then when I watch this trailer and I see Sam and Bucky now just squarely facing off with John Walker and him saying, you don't want to do this, and Bucky saying, yeah, we do. I'm just like, I can't wait to see this. I love the trailer. Question is for you guys. Have you guys had a chance to see this new little motion trailer spot for the upcoming Falcon Winter Soldier episode 5? I love it personally. What did you guys think? Jump into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. Got a couple more things off the top. Let's bring this one up next. Rob, you know me. My second favorite day of the year, other than Christmas is still my absolute favorite day of the year. Other than Christmas, my favorite day of the year is not my birthday. Making sure Anne's not around. It's not my anniversary.
Uh-oh. She saw that.
It's the Oscars. The Oscars are my second favorite day of the year. But you know that this year I have very little interest in the Oscars. I think because of the COVID and pandemic. And we've had debates about this, and that's fine. You may have a different opinion than me, guys. But I'm just not interested in award season this year because it's just too much of an asterisk year, in my opinion. That's just me. You may feel differently, and that's fine. But something really did catch my attention, which was the Directors Guild of America, which is, of course, all the directors in Hollywood. They have their annual awards where they hand out, who they feel is, all the directors say, we feel this is the best of us this year. And for only the second time in its 73-year history, the DGA have crowned a woman as their director of the year in Chloé Zhao, the director of Nomadland, and of course the upcoming Marvel film, The Eternals. And she was appointed as by the DGA's director of the year. I believe she also won Best Director of the Year, the BAFTAs, that was just kind of handed out. But again, very significant. Not since Hurt Locker, James Cameron's ex-wife. Why am I forgetting her name?
Catherine Bigelow.
Catherine Bigelow, thank you. Who also directed Detroit a couple of years ago, which is another powerful, powerful film. But anyway, Catherine Bigelow, I believe it was in 2009 that Catherine Bigelow won Best Director with the DGAs for Hurt Locker. This is now just the second time it's happened. And again, as somebody who is a fan of comic book movies, knowing that this is the director of Eternals gets me very, very excited. Now, Rob, it still kind of stuns me how many people have not watched Nomadland. It's kind of sweeping up all the awards. Again, I don't really care about the awards this year per se. I normally do, but not this year. But I'll tell you what, Nomadland is I get it. There's no giant lizards and monkeys fighting each other. There's no robots from outer space shooting a laser out of their eyes. There's no superheroes turning back time or altering reality. I get it. Nomadland, though, is basically human storytelling perfection. I get wrapped up in the true human experiences and emotions and bigger questions about life and what makes happiness happen, what makes fulfillment happen, what makes you feel like you're living your life. and like Nomadland, and Frances McDormand, who's just kills it again, and it's all performance and direction. And when you get a director who doesn't need to rely on, and this is no disrespect to our big sci-fi epic comic book movie directors, not at all. You know, that's my bag. I love that stuff. But when you can get a director who doesn't have giant robots or superheroes or monsters or lasers or visual effects and blah, and can just tell a story that enraptures your imagination and your thoughts and makes you feel philosophical, if you will, for nearly 2 hours, she just did an amazing thing. And now you take somebody who can tell stories on that level, and you give them the big visual effects, Rob, you give them the big budgets, you give them the big stars and the big superhero stuff, and you give them all that when they're already one of the finest storytellers in the world. It's a very exciting thing. Rob, I think this is an incredibly significant thing. Number one, being only the second woman ever to win this thing. But it's also very exciting knowing that this is the person who's delivering us one of the more highly anticipated comic book movies later this year. Rob, you heard about Chloé Zhao winning this award. What are your reactions to that?
Well, I have to say that I think it's terrific. I think, now, I have not seen, to be fair, I have not seen Nomadland, but John, I've always believed that Best Picture winners have to have sort of a universality to them, a timeless quality to them, something that leaps beyond maybe the genre they're from or the traditional narrative, that they do something that will transcend the time in which they're made. And, this rumination on sort of these Americans that have dropped out of the typical American lifestyle and are creating another lifestyle that's sort of also uniquely American, albeit very different, interests me greatly. And Frances McDormand also picked up a Best Actress award. The cinematography picked up an award at the BAFTAs. So, this kind of a movie, I think this is the kind of cinema that, to be honest, I kind of crave. And I was really hoping to see this on a big screen, to be honest. I know it's streaming, but I think it's great. And I think the fact that, Chloé Zhao is an immigrant from China. She's Chinese born, came to America and has worked her way up in the industry. And man, as I've always said, how cool is it that Kevin Feige tapped her, saw something in her? Once again, Kevin Feige, what other studio would hire her? Now they'll hire her, but before she'd done this, to make a $150 million to $200 million tentpole movie. And she was hired because apparently, as we've heard reported, it was her take. Her take on the Eternals is what convinced Kevin Feige and her work, obviously, but her take to go with her. And that's how the business is supposed to work. And to me, once again, Marvel has displayed they're thinking out of the box, and they are rewarded for the symbiotic relationship they have with their filmmakers. And I think it's great.
Side note here. I think we need to do, maybe sometime this week we'll cover this as its own standalone topic, because we might have to make this a topic. Whenever the discussion about the greatest actress of all time comes up, there are a few standard names, understandably so, that gets brought up. The name Frances McDormand never does get brought up. Here's the reality, though. I believe she has been nominated for 6 or 7 Academy Awards. She has 2 Best Actress Academy Awards already sitting on her mantle. All right, for Fargo, which she was so good in Fargo, and for 3 Billboards, which is one of the best leading lady performances I've ever seen. Her in 3 Billboards. She is the lead favorite right now to also win the Academy Award this year for this. Now, granted, I still think it's a bit of an asterisk here, but that aside, if she wins, she will have 3 Best Lead Actress Academy Awards sitting on her mantle. Does she need to be in the discussion of the greatest actress of all time? Should she be in that conversation, Rob?
Yes. I mean, dude, I'm looking it up. She has been nominated for Best Actress and Best Support for Academy Awards 6 times. In 89, she was nominated for Mississippi Burning. In 97 for Fargo as that was supporting. Best Actress in Fargo, which she won. In 2001 for a movie I adore, Almost Famous. 2006 for North Country. Those were both Best Supporting Actresses. In 2018, she was nominated for 3 Billboards and won. And then, of course, for Nomadland, she was also nominated, which she probably is going to win. And you know what? I think you're absolutely right. She is easily one of our finest actresses working today, if not ever. I mean, go back all the way to 89. That's 32 years ago. So she's been in the discussion for more than a quarter century being nominated for Best Actress. And you know what I think? I'll tell you why I think that a lot of people, that she's our stealth Best Actress.
That's a good way of putting it.
She's our stealth Best Actress because she, to me, has peak verisimilitude in that she's almost chameleon-like, because her features, she can, dress up and look beautiful, or she can dress down and her beauty is sort of removed and she becomes the every person. She's totally chameleon-like, and she can do almost anything. I mean, she plays a stern character in Almost Famous. She plays a capable character who's very regional in Fargo. And I just think that her versatility is her strength. And, people they forget about her because she has that peak verisimilitude. You utterly believe that every role she takes, she becomes that. She just adds to the reality of whatever it is that you're watching, and you don't even think she's acting.
Yeah,
she's that good.
Now, and look, not to say this is a runaway thing. This year's Best Actress race is actually a very, very, very tight race. It's very tight. But I'm just saying, if she pulls out her third one, she's got to be in the conversation, I think. And an amazing job being directed by Chloé Zhao. Again, only the second female director in the 73-year history of the DGA to win Best Director. And she's directing a Marvel movie coming up this year. Question is, guys, what do you think about that? Jump on down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys, we've got one more off the top to talk about here today, and that is this. This one's a little bit walking on thin ice. I want to be careful about this. Look, around here at the John Campea Show, we don't talk about politics. We leave politics to be discussed by, newsmakers and other people who specialize in that. That is not what we do. But I do like to talk about the effects certain issues are having on the movie industry itself and what those effects may be. For those of you who don't know, there's something going on in Georgia, and I really don't care what your position on it is, just as I'm sure you don't care about what my position on this is. But there's an issue going on in Georgia where there is a series of laws that are being passed that some people are defining as being specifically designed to be restrictive. In other words, they're trying to make it harder for Black people to vote. That's kind of the thing that they're saying, at least at any rate, regardless of what you think about that. In response to that, there's been some corporate pushback on things like that. And one of the, of course, businesses that happens a lot in Georgia is the film business. Georgia, Rob, you and I know, offers some of the most enticing tax incentives for productions to come and shoot there. It's one of the reasons why we see a lot of Marvel stuff shoot in Georgia. A lot of film production. Tyler Perry set up his big studio and production thing in Georgia. A lot of things go to shoot there because of these really generous tax incentives. However, there has been some discussion about maybe some companies, particularly in the movie industry, pulling out of Georgia because of the controversy surrounding certain laws. Well, now there's been a very definitive sort of, what's the best way to put this? Definitive and real action being taken. Now, Antoine Fuqua, terrific director, and Will Smith are, of course, working on this new film called Emancipation, based on the real-life character of a slave who escaped and kind of became a symbol and all that kind of stuff. It was set to shoot in Georgia. And I believe they've become really the first major film to stand up and saying, we are pulling our production out of Georgia. Now, again, we are not here to debate whether that was a good thing for them to do or not a good thing for them to do. We're not here to debate the political aspect of this. The bottom line fact is we have a major film production that is now being pulled out of the state. All while We are hearing that other film productions are considering the same thing. Even Tyler Perry, who I don't think Tyler Perry's going to go anywhere. He's got way too much money invested there. I don't think he's going to go anywhere. But we've been hearing he's been making inquiries in places like Louisiana and things like that, and maybe moving out himself. Rob, where the economics of the film industry are such that entire productions will determine where they go based on which place will give them the best tax incentives, because that can equate to tens of millions of dollars, which is very, very real money. And that becomes a significant thing. Number one, do you think that this move by Will Smith and Antoine Fuqua in their movie may create a domino effect where we may see more? Or do you think more studios are just going to stick with their existing plans? And if they do, how do you see that shifting? Do you think there's going to be a new hot state that pops up to become a hotbed for film production? Do you see these movies moving back to the traditional film production states of California or New York? I don't know. How do you see this kind of playing out?
Well, look, I mean, Georgia became a hotbed of production the way Louisiana did before it because of tax incentives. And it became obviously very lucrative in terms of, when you have tax. So for people who don't know, when you have tax incentives, they might give you back, say, with good ones, 30 cents on every dollar that you spend. Yeah. So if you bring $100 million into a state and spend it, you're going to get $30 million on the back end back. So that means you could even up your budget, or you could use it to defray the costs. If you're an independent filmmaker and you're making something for $1 million, getting back $300,000 goes a long way to paying back your investment. And so that's why tax incentives are so important. And listen, Hollywood money is big money because the thing about you're not spending things, there's no credit being used. Money is really changing hands. So when Hollywood comes to town, money is being spent across many different areas. A lot of local businesses make money, certainly hotels and restaurants and bars and things like that.
Trades
but also,
and crafts people.
Yes, trades. And you're talking about lumber, you're talking about expendables, all kinds of things. So bringing in Hollywood money can really bolster local economies. So this is a huge thing. I mean, Marvel has been set up in Atlanta for a long time. Tyler Perry, on his own accord, because of his incredible success, has built one of the great production facilities the world has ever seen. If he pulls out, like you said, I don't think he will. But this is really not a good thing. And it's not just Hollywood. It's other businesses that are talking about leaving. And in a way, I mean, this is how you affect change through wielding economic power. But it also is an opportunity for many different states that, there are states that really have not thought about being a hotbed of production, that I'm sure they're going, I mean, my own home state of Washington has never been very, very friendly towards production. That's why everybody always goes to shoot in Vancouver. But it's kind of been a bummer. But,
my friend. Canadian cities like Vancouver and Toronto have benefited very, very much from a lot of production being shipped up there. And I love it.
Yeah. And it's Toronto and Vancouver and even Montreal. So they know what's going on. And so we'll see. I mean, I think that when you have Anton Fuqua and Will Smith teaming up, I don't think they would have much of a choice. They're doing a movie, isn't it, about slavery?
Yeah.
And while Georgia would be a perfect place to shoot it, so would Louisiana. So there you go. So would South Carolina. So when you make these decisions, you got to think about the long-term ramifications of them.
Yeah. And again, like I said, we're not debating here or here to discuss. I'm not saying what's going on in Georgia isn't a big important issue. I'm just saying for what the John Campea Show is, it's not really germane to what it is we're talking about. But what is germane is how does it impact the movie industry itself? Georgia has been an incredible hotbed for production. Could we start to see a domino effect of production moving out and maybe finding other states that may now find in themselves their own incentives to set up great tax incentives for these places to come? Again, places like Vancouver, Toronto, a lot of video production happens because of those types of incentives. It's going to be interesting to see how this all pans out. Question is for you guys. What do you think about that? Do you think the fact that they're moving emancipation out of Georgia somewhere else could start a trend amongst maybe setting up some new states that have never been hotbeds for film production? Maybe they can be now. What do you guys think? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys, with all that out of the way, let's now move on to our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with our main topics. Whenever you come across a big story, issue, or topic that you think we should have as a main story here on the John Campea Show, just go anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. When you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by CoolKid260, who writes, it looks like Paramount decided and changed a lot of their upcoming films, with the big one is MI7 coming out next year and Top Gun Maverick now coming out this December. With everything going so well with the vaccine rollout, why would Paramount do this, since this doesn't help the new streaming app, Paramount Plus? All right, thanks a lot for that, Cool Kid. And yes, for those of you who may not have seen or heard about this, Paramount has just moved, this just happened late last week, moved a lot of their movies, including Top Gun 2, and of course their new Mission Impossible movie, which has been the center of a lot of news stories as Tom Cruise has been struggling to get that thing done. They have been moving those things around, and they've both been pushed back a little bit. The question that Cool Kid asks is a very legitimate question. Why would you push these things back when we're seeing like the success of something like Godzilla vs. Kong is having? More and more vaccines are rolling out. As long as you're not a state like Michigan that can't seem to get their heads around some basic principles. In a lot of places in the country, we're seeing COVID rates go down. Why would they make this move? I think the reason they make this move is really more for traditional reasons rather than pandemic ones. This comes to us from the folks over at Deadline, who write the following. Top Gun Maverick is leaving its July 2nd weekend for November 19th, taking over the release date where Paramount/Skydance's other Tom Cruise sequel, Mission Impossible 7, resides. So, Mission Impossible 7 was supposed to come out November 19th. It is moving now, and since that spot is now vacant, they see that as a very lucrative month for this type of a movie. They decided to retake that spot back with Top Gun Maverick. Anyway, meanwhile, Mission Impossible 7 will now open on May 27th, 2022, Memorial Day weekend. A holiday frame that has been the traditional home for the franchise for its first 1996 chapter and its 2000 year sequel. Top Gun 2 moves to a date where it will be up against Will Smith drama King Richard, so totally different demographic. That's, by the way, Aaron Cummings' new movie. MI7 takes over Paramount's Dungeons & Dragons 4-day holiday date. Of course, Dungeons & Dragons was recently moved, putting the film up against Disney's untitled live-action feature and Lionsgate's John Wick Chapter 4. So basically, what it looks like here is that they made the decision to move these films not for pandemic reasons, but because of traditional reasons why a studio may want to move. They saw an opportunity now that there was some empty space on the Memorial Day weekend. They thought one of our Tom Cruise movies would do great on that Memorial Day weekend. Let's move it. Moving it created a gap that they themselves were able to fill, saying, we think that's a good time for this. Yes, everything's moving in the right direction with the pandemic, but we think in November we can do even better. So they slid it over there. This, to me, especially with some space opening up, Rob, in that Memorial Day weekend, Tom Cruise is an actor who just kind of shouts Memorial Day almost better than any other actor out there. That seemed like a good move. So actually, I look at this, and even though we've grown tired over the past year, obviously, me more than anybody, of hearing about movies getting delayed, this one actually looks like it makes sense. And it looks like a strategic move more than anything else to me, Rob. Anyway, Rob, you saw these switching around in the release schedule thing for these two Tom Cruise movies. What do you make of it?
Well, look, I mean, obviously, we've heard all the stories about the making of Mission Impossible 7 and how difficult it was in the world, in the age of COVID. So having more time to put it together and prep Mission Impossible 8, I think can only be a good thing. And ultimately, I'm sure Top Gun Maverick is ready to go, but letting, they've shown that Godzilla versus King Kong has made theatrical releases viable again. Even though we've got COVID cases going up around the world, in places where it matters, cases are coming down. So I think there's a lot of people, especially Warner Brothers, that might regret the idea of it. Yep, we're going to go day and date with all of our movies in streaming and in theaters. So I think just pushing things around from this perspective, it works out all the way around. It works out scheduling wise. It allows movies to have a little bit more time to breathe in terms of post. And look, the world's waited for Top Gun Maverick since the 80s. It can wait a little longer.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. We've been waiting forever. Dude, it was the last Comic-Con that actually happened in San Diego. Remember, there wasn't one last year. It was the one before that where Tom Cruise came out and said, hey guys, I've got a trailer for Top Gun Maverick to show you. Here we are in 2021. We still haven't got the movie. You're right. We waited a long time. We can wait a little bit more, and I think it's going to work out for them. Question is for you guys. What do you think about this move by Paramount? I personally think it makes good strategic sense, even though I am kind of itching to see these two new movies. What do you guys think about it? Jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Edward, I'm going to pronounce it McKay. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, who writes, hello, John and Rob. It looks like all the vaccinations are having a positive impact on the movie world and not just Godzilla vs. Kong. I just saw that Snake Eyes actually just moved up 3 months to release in the summer. This is great news. Why do you think they made this move now? And do you think we could start to see more films moving up their release dates? Thanks. Okay, man. Thanks a lot for sending that in. And in many ways, this is a story that is completely the opposite from the story we were just talking about. We just talked about Tom Cruise moving Mission Impossible. They just moved Top Gun 2, and they moved it a little bit further back. However, there were strategic reasons for that. Now we get news that Snake Eyes has just been moved up 3 full months from October to July. And realistically, they actually did it for strategic reasons as well. This comes to us from the folks over at Deadline who write, we learned today that Paramount Snake Eyes, G.I. Joe's Origins, is moving up from its October 22nd release date to July 23rd. The G.I. Joe movies play younger, and it only makes sense for the new standalone from E1/Hasbro to play in the summer. And right there, Deadline, as far as I'm concerned, Rob, completely captures it. Look, they had this movie pushed off further because, COVID, we're a little bit worried how long it will take. Well, they see, you know what? Godzilla vs. Kong is probably going to hit $400 million. Godzilla vs. Kong is probably going to hit $400 million. It's already over like $370 million worldwide. People are excited about coming back. I don't know that Mortal Kombat is going to do as well as Godzilla vs. Kong, but I'm hearing a lot of people. I've already got my tickets. I know a lot of people are very excited to get to theaters to go see Mortal Kombat. And Deadline is absolutely right. A G.I. Joe movie does play a bit younger. If the opportunity is there to play this during the summer break, you take advantage of that opportunity. And now they're seeing, as our other studios, you know what? We're in a place right now that we can start moving our movies and we can get these things open. And if a movie like Snake Eyes would play better in the summer, we can take advantage of that right now. Now, ultimately, is that the right move? I'm not 100% sure, but I think on paper it makes sense. Now, Rob, ever since they announced that Henry Golding was going to be playing the lead character, I've really fallen in love with Henry Golding as a performer. I think he's got all the charm and charisma and talent in the world. I loved him in The Gentleman. I loved him in A Simple Favor. I love him in Crazy Rich Asians. I just think the dude's really good, and I think he's going to play this great. But I think this is a pretty good, solid strategic move, and it just makes me even more excited to see this thing. Rob, you heard about the move to take Snake Eyes from October to July. What do you think about this?
Well, I think, Paramount needs a hit.
Yeah.
So it's like why wait? You know, there's the CBS, their merger, their stock prices is down. You know, I think they look at this as an opportunity to say we're back, baby, to both their investors and to the movie-going audience. And they look at I mean, who's going to go to this? Who's excited about Snake Eyes? Well, I guess we are. Middle-aged.
Yeah, the
Well, as a
14-year-olds at heart.
Middle-aged man-child. I mean, I've always loved G.I. Joe. They were my first love back when they were 12-inch action figures, and so I want to see this. It looks like it'll be very, very cool. Who doesn't want to see it? I mean, the summer movie season, let's face it, is not very exciting these days. But now I think as we see maybe more films making these moves back to summer, maybe the summer movie season will not be the desolate place that it was last year, leaving us all, our souls were empty, John. I would like to see a summer movie season where I can get excited about it and maybe smile a bit. I'm getting my jab tomorrow, and man, I'm going back to a movie theater, let me tell you.
And you know, let's be honest here. Snake Eyes was never going to be a $700 million movie, right?
No.
I mean, so if you can take advantage of a summer release that's now become more tenable because of the vaccinations and stuff like that, try to take advantage of some of that momentum that's being set up by movies like Godzilla vs. Kong, maybe Mortal Kombat, and you can get a good chunk now in the summer, I think it's a pretty good move. And I'm excited for it. I can't wait to see it. Question is for you guys. What do you think about this? You know, it's always good that we're now entering a period of time where we're hearing about movies getting moved forward and not just moved back. Are you looking forward to seeing Snake Eyes? I personally am. What do you guys think? Jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Aaron W., who writes, "Hey, John, and especially Rob, just when I was starting to think we would never get another Star Trek movie, Paramount announced today on the official Star Trek website that they will be releasing an untitled Star Trek Universe movie on June 9th, 2023, which is really, 2023 still sounds like it's the future. It's just 2 years away. As of now, the film is untitled. While there is no news if it will be a new story or part of the Kelvin timeline, I'm excited for more big screen Trek. What are your thoughts? Thanks." Okay, Aaron, thanks a lot for sending that in. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I'm a Star Wars guy. Everybody knows that. I'm a Star Wars guy. But Star Wars gave me a love and appreciation for all things sci-fi. And my mom particularly used to like watching Star Trek. And she would, you know, the old Star Trek reruns would be on. And a lot of my growing up was watching the old Star Trek reruns. And I fell in love with them. And then, of course, when The Next Generation came out, my mom made that a household event to watch Star Trek The Next Generation when it debuted. And so I got into that, and I really like these things. Now, opinion is divided over, you know, the state of Star Trek, particularly once you got to the J.J. Abrams era. I, for one, really like the J.J. Abrams era movies. The second one, I didn't love the second one, but I really love the first one. I love the third one, even though it kind of tanked financially, but I thought the third one was great. I am somebody who likes the direction Star Trek. So I like Picard and I like Discovery and things like that. There are other people who do not. There are other people on this show today who do not, which we'll get into that in a second. But I have absolutely been looking forward to seeing another Star Trek movie. I want to see another Star Trek movie. I love the initial idea that there was out there that Chris Hemsworth was going to come back as Kirk's dad, and there was going to be a movie that involved, the two Kirks. I think it was George Kirk, and William. Not William. That's William Shatner. And
Chris,
Kirk. So we were going to have both of them in it. I like that idea. That one seems to have gone away. So whatever this new movie is going to be, whether it's a brand new kind of iteration, whether it's Kelvin Timeline, whether it's a Next Generation spinoff, whether it's a Deep Space Nine, the Next Generation, whether it's Voyager, the new class, I don't know. I do know this. Anytime you're announcing there's a new Star Trek movie coming, you're going to have my attention. And I like the sounds of it. Anyway, this comes to us from the folks over at Cinema Blend who write, This update comes to us from Paramount's official press team, which revealed a number of movie delays. While fans were disappointed learning that highly anticipated blockbusters like Top Gun Maverick and Mission Impossible 7 were being pushed back, there was a silver lining. Namely, because Star Trek is finally returning to theaters in 2023. Although exactly what this movie is remains a mystery. Now, Rob, you and I are the poster children, I think, of the two divergent views on what we'll call quote unquote modern Star Trek.
Yeah.
I represent, those of us who actually really do appreciate it. You're somebody that you want to appreciate it, you just can't. You just don't appreciate it, even though you want to love all things Star Trek. But this stuff hasn't worked for you. I think you and I are a good representation of the two different sides of that. Let me ask you a general question here. Before we get into the specifics of what do you want the new movie to be, what do you think it'll be, when you just hear, despite the status of things now, that there is a new Star Trek movie coming, do you still get excited about that? Or is your take on the current state of things kind of damper that? And then where do you think they might go and what they might do with this new Star Trek movie? Because it's not going to be the Quentin Tarantino one, apparently, which got a lot of people excited initially when they first started talking about it. But what does your heart do when you just hear new Star Trek movie? And then where do you ultimately think they might go with that?
That's a big question. I feel whenever I hear they're going to make new Star Trek, first of all, I get excited about it. Kind of the way I get excited about James Bond. I mean, I love these franchises. I've loved Star Trek my whole life. And for the most part, growing up, Star Trek has grown up with me. There's literally, from the time I was watching the original series and I thought there would be no new Star Trek as a little kid, there was the animated series. Then there was the Star Trek the Motion Picture. Then there was the movies with the original cast. Then there's the Next Generation. And things have grown, and Deep Space Nine and Voyager and Enterprise and on to the shows now. What I object to is, since the J.J. Abrams era, the Bad Robot / Secret Hideout era of Star Trek, I feel that there has been a fundamental effort at the very deepest level to change Star Trek into something that it is not. And that is a franchise that is first and foremost about humanism and ideals and allegorical storytelling about the state of humanity and where we could go in the future. It's been turned into action adventure. Star Trek has always had action adventure as part of it, but it was secondary to the stories and the characters. And the action came behind. And what they've tried to do is turn Star Trek into a Star Wars-esque like franchise. And why not? Because it ain't show friends, it's show business, and they want to make more money. But I think problematically for them is these efforts. We now have 13 years or 12 years of efforts of this new type of Star Trek, and it hasn't proved financially viable. And if you look at the J.J. Abrams era of Star Trek movies, they were very expensive and they never justified their costs. And what I mean by that, you mentioned yourself, Star Trek Beyond. Star Trek Beyond had a production budget, a reported production budget of $185 million. That doesn't even include marketing. And worldwide, it only grossed, according to Box Office Mojo, $343,471,816. It didn't even double its production budget. Now, that is a huge financial loss for the studio.
And just to be clear, to put an exclamation point on Rob's point, some people may hear those numbers, Rob, and think, well, it made double its money. It actually lost money. It actually needed to make more than that to make money. So just to drive that point home, because I think a lot of people still hear production budget and that's all they think, and they hear the box office was bigger, that means it was hugely profitable. It actually wasn't. It actually lost money.
A movie has to gross 3 to 4 times its cost in order to break even, because remember, the studio doesn't get back all of that $343 million. It's sharing. So the studio probably, I don't know if it even made its production budget back, because I feel that what's happened is they're concentrating more on the visual effects and the zip and the zap and the pow of it all, the pew pew of it all, rather than the intellectual storytelling. People are like, well, Rob, that's what we want. But that's not what Star Trek is. And this effort to try and make it more like an action adventure show as opposed to something else, I think that if they're going to make new Star Trek movies, cap the budget. Do what they did. Great. Star Trek was made great because they had to figure out they couldn't rely on special effects and action. And if you go back and you look at something like Star Trek: The Voyage Home, that was very successful in its day when it came out in '86, made a lot of money. And it's a character-based story. It has warmth and humor, and there's great special effects in it, but it's more reliant. I mean, Kirk and Spock walk into an antique store and sell Kirk's glasses to make money so they can survive in 1986 San Francisco. And that's what they even have a conversation about whether they like Italian food. And it's hilarious, and it's warm, and it's what you love about Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. And there isn't that. The equivalent of that doesn't exist in the modern Star Trek movies. And I think that's the problem. And if you were to make a Star Trek movie, I would say, if I was Emma Watts, I'm like, all right, guys at Bad Robot, you write me a script that we can make for $85 million, and you make it great, and you go to the essence of what Star Trek is. We'll make that movie. I'll pre-green light it right now without even knowing what it's about. But you only get $85 million to make it. I would be interested to see what they might come up with.
Well, I'm interested in that sort of ideal for almost any filmmaker. I love hearing the idea.
100%.
I like that idea a lot. Now, let me offer a couple of devil's advocate counters here, a little bit. See, somebody like me, I've really appreciated. Now, you're right. They have transitioned Star Trek over let's say the last dozen years or so into a little bit more to incorporate more of the sci-fi action adventure-ism of it. But to me, it's been done to good effect. Now, you mentioned the fact that, and you're right, that movie lost money, Star Trek Beyond, but it was pretty wonderful. I mean, the critics score on Star Trek Beyond was an 86%. The audience score on Star Trek Beyond was an 80%. I mean, people enjoyed it. It was good stuff. I think there's a good way to meld the two things. The problem, of course, becomes that the way Star Trek was, it was literally, the audience for Star Trek was literally dying off. We saw for over a decade, the box office continue to plummet and go into complete obscurity. Star Trek had gone into complete obscurity. It was literally dying off until they revitalized it with the J.J. Abrams one. Now, I still think that means there has to be a good balance between capturing the spirit of what the original stuff was, the original series, Next Generation, things like that, combined with the movie-going habits and everything of today with incorporating more of the sci-fi action adventure into it. I do think there has to be a happy medium.
I do too.
People like me think they have struck that happy medium. There are other people that I know and really respect, like you, who haven't felt like they've been able to strike that happy medium. And it's very much, it feels like it's very much a house divided right now. It's going to be interesting to see how they come up. But I love your idea of that, like going to them. But I want to see them do this with Marvel movies and with DC movies too. Going to them and saying, okay, Star Trek crew, here's $90 million.
Yeah.
Now you got to make this thing great based strictly on your story. Leverage the 90 million as well as you can to make it visually appealing and make it as great as you can. But I love that idea. I think that's a terrific idea.
You know, when I think back, I mean, I always go back to my litmus test was the first Matrix. That movie in 99, I know it was 22 years ago, but it was a $65 million movie. And by the way, so was Deadpool, even though it was obviously later. But look at what the Wachowskis provided to us. They gave us unbelievable action we'd never seen before, a science fiction premise that was literally mind-blowing. I sat in the theater when it's revealed the red pill and the blue pill and Neo wakes up in one of those human batteries. I'm like, oh my God. So it was intellectually amazing.
Yep.
And the storytelling was compelling. You give us characters that we're still emulating and talking about, whether it's Agent Smith or Neo or Morpheus or Trinity. I want to see the Star Trek version. I want to see the Matrix equivalent. And I don't mean with necessarily that action, but a story and characters that are that mind-blowing. That's what Star Trek deserves.
Question is for you guys. What do you think about this announcement that they are going to be doing a new Star Trek major motion picture? And it's not like off in the distant future. It is literally just 2 years away, which I mean, really, Rob, means it would have to start going into production within the next 6 months, I would imagine. We don't know anything about it yet. What do you think about it? Jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move on to our fourth and final main topic today. And our fourth main topic today gets submitted to us by Junior Ote, who writes, it's probably somebody I know wrote that in. Anyway, it's an insider thing. Okay, Junior Ote writes, did you see that the Warner Brothers CEO just admitted that they made a mistake moving everything to HBO Max instead of doing the proper movie releases? Well, that's not exactly true, Junior, but we'll get into that in a second. What do you think made me admit it? Probably means made him admit it. Was it all the directors complaining about it? The other money companies? Do you think this will affect anything moving forward? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Junior. Now, what Junior's referring to here is, of course, what I think was one of the greatest mishandlings and botched situations in the history of big studio management. When Warner Brothers and WarnerMedia decided, without consulting their directors, without consulting the filmmakers, without consulting the shareholders, without consulting the financial stakes people, without consulting their production partners, unilaterally, without consultation, came out and made the announcements, hey guys, all of our 2021 movies, we're just moving to HBO Max, and then ducked for cover. As people like Christopher Nolan, Denis Villeneuve, and other James Gunn even, came out and lambasted them for that decision without talking to anybody. Of course, Legendary Pictures then came out, the company that financed a number of their big projects, came out, threatened litigation, all this kind of stuff. Now, we've seen some things move, and WarnerMedia has come out recently and assured everybody that in 2022, they're going back to their regular theatrical model. But it was one of the biggest bonehead moves ever done. You cannot make a move like that and not bring in all the shareholders, all the stakes holders, if you will, all the people who have vested interests in all these movies, and consulting them, letting them know what you're thinking, hearing from them. At the end of the day, you're still WarnerMedia and you're going to make the decision you want to make. But to not consult these people or even give them a heads up was one of the dumbest Bush League moronic things that they could ever possibly do. And I think what has now become apparent is that they kind of realize that's the case. This comes to us when Jason, it was being interviewed on a Vox's podcast. WarnerMedia CEO Jason Kilar said the following: there is no doubt that it was bumpy back in early December. That's when they made their stupid announcement. It was a bumpy ride back in early December of last year. If I had the chance to do it over again, I think it's very fair to say that we would have taken a couple more days. Why not months, you moron? We would have taken a couple of more days to see if we could have even more conversations that we were able to have. Basically, he's admitting, now, this is not, unfortunately, Junior, this is not them saying or admitting that it was a total, complete mistake to move things to HBO Max. That's not what he's saying. But he is kind of at least showing the chink in the armor and saying, we botched it. We didn't handle this right. Acknowledging that not talking to the people who have vested interest in these things, the people who have written these movies, who have directed these movies, who finance these movies, not at least having conversations with all of them to hear their point of view and to give them a heads up at the least, other than, you know, a legendary, Rob, your Legendary Pictures, you put up $75 million to make one of their movies, and you wake up, pick up your iPad and look in Variety, and you see an announcement that your movie that you finance is being moved to streaming. Like, that's not the way you do business. It's not the way to foster relationships. Warner Brothers has been forever known as the director's studio. The studio directors love to work with. And now you've got all the top directors in the world saying, F you. And Denis Villeneuve actually writing an op-ed piece for Variety, destroying them. I'll say this, Rob. It is refreshing to see a studio head like Jason come out, because look, everybody makes mistakes. Do not think for a second you don't make mistakes. I make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. It is very rare, though, to see a studio head come a little bit forward and at least a little bit say, I should have done things differently. At that level, it's kind of refreshing to see. And I think that is probably, Rob, I don't know this. This is just me speculating. I think this is probably an indicator of probably a lot of conversations Jason Kilar has had to have with people at Legendary, with Christopher Nolan, with Denis Villeneuve, with hundreds, if not thousands of other directors, writers, producers, who they kind of blindsided attacked with. This was a WWE coming out of nowhere from behind with a chair across the back of your head. This is what WarnerMedia did to a lot of people. And it is at least kind of nice to see him saying, yeah, if I could go back and do it differently, I would. Because that at least kind of suggests that maybe that's something that won't happen again in the future. And again, we're not even talking, Rob, about whether or not it was a dumb move in general to move movies to HBO, but it's the way they did it and how they did it. And they backstabbed a lot of their partners in the way they carried it out, which is why a lot of them got really pissed off. It's nice to hear him acknowledge this. So it kind of brings up the whole open gaping wound again. But at the same time, I think it's a good sign that says this is probably something WarnerMedia and other studios hopefully won't replicate in the future. Rob, you hear Jason's comments on this. What's your reaction to them?
Well, I mean, look, like you say, winning changes everything. And when a movie like Godzilla versus Kong performs as we emerge from COVID, sure, it's easy to say, well, we're reconsidering. And obviously Legendary that made Kong, they have Dune coming out. And Jason wants to keep Legendary happy, and luckily Legendary looks like Kong might even outgross 2014's Godzilla at the box office. So again, you're playing all these games. But I mean, I understand where Kilar was coming from, and you gotta go with the flow. They made a mistake. You know what? Kudos to him for he's now one of the biggest power players in Hollywood. He's coming out going, yeah, I messed up. Maybe I should have not done that. But you know, in the situation that they were in, basically they had to do something. And I think what they did was probably a smart move at first. It certainly didn't harm Godzilla versus Kong, this day and date thing. But then they realized that as we move out, if you don't want to leave, like we've always said, John, movies get value based on their box office performance theatrically.
Yeah.
So if a movie makes $1 billion at the box office, or even 3, 4, 500 million, that's a win. That means the general public perceives these films as having value. More so than if they just played on streaming. And you never want to diminish that. And I think Disney's been pushing Black Widow back far for the same reason. You know, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has value because each film on the average grosses $1 billion. Why would they want to upset that by releasing Black Widow before its time, when it can still look, if Black Widow made $500 million, that's still an epic win for Disney. So I'm thinking, man, they want to reconsider. They are reacting like anybody should to different and changing conditions, and I think it's a good move. Depending on where we see things could change again.
Yeah.
But I think for where we're at now, for Godzilla versus Kong's performance, it's the right thing to do, the right thing to say, and I think it shows great leadership as far as he's concerned. And everyone's looking at him because what is WarnerMedia going to do next?
Well, let's revisit a question we've asked ourselves a couple of times. And I think it's worth revisiting every couple of weeks because, as you say, the conditions and circumstances are constantly changing. Let's look ahead again to Dune. Dune is obviously one of the movies that Legendary was most upset about, that obviously director Denis Villeneuve was most upset about. In now, where we are today, I'm not going to hold you to this because where we are 2 weeks from now can be completely different. But where we are today, do you think WarnerMedia at some point will shift Dune from being a day and date release on HBO Max and theaters and just go strictly theatrical as the way that Legendary wants it to be? What's your guess right now?
You know, again, I think right now things are on the uptick. It looks pretty good. And I think that everybody wants theatrical releases. And I think that I mean, these movies are expensive. They have a lot of money on the table. And, for things that are upcoming, like a movie like Dune, they wanted to have a concurrent TV series on HBO Max, the Sisterhood of the Bene Gesserit, or whatever they're going to call it. I mean, Legendary, WarnerMedia, it's to everybody's benefit to get movies out theatrically, first and foremost.
Right.
And I just think that's what they're trying to do. Everybody wants to do that.
Yeah.
And what we talked about earlier, Snake Eyes, Paramount wants to do that. They're moving. Didn't Spiral, the Saw movie, that got moved up?
Yep.
And I think that look, I want to see movies in the theater, but business-wise, everybody needs movies to open theatrically and do well. The whole business does.
Yep. The whole industry needs it. Question is for you guys. What do you think about this? I mean, it reminds me again of just how dumb the move was in the first place, but it is kind of refreshing, I got to see a head of a company like this come forward and say, hey, I think we may have made a mistake in how we handled this. How do you guys see this, and what do you think the repercussions are moving forward? Jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With all that down and out of the way, let's now move on and start taking your live questions that you've been sending in. We're a little bit behind on the live questions because obviously the weekends past had a lot come in. So let's not waste any time and get on over to the live questions you guys have been sending in here. And we're going to start getting caught up with Russell Amador, who writes, hey, John, first time fans rallied behind the release of the Snyder Cut. Now fans have rallied behind the release of the Zemo Cut, and it's here. Marvel has heard us loud and clear and released this extended cut of the coolest guy to hit the dance floor. So epic. And listen, Russell, I don't want to be a wet blanket, but here's the reality. The reality is this whole, for those of you guys who didn't see, leading into the final, to the most recent episode of Falcon Winter Soldier, Disney released, as their trailer promoting it, just the extended cut of Zemo dancing. Not only do we get Zemo doing this, we now have Zemo doing this. I mean, it was just a brilliant piece of marketing. But make no mistake, it wasn't Disney going, man, our fans really want to see the extended cut of Zemo. Let's be kind to them and giving it to... No. Disney saw an opportunity to use your love of that to market their show. They put that thing out as a piece of marketing to manipulate us into watching the show. And that's what all marketing is. And they were right to do it. It's the same thing with the Snyder Cut stuff. I told you, everybody does it. Don't get mad at Warner Brothers for doing it. All the studios do it, including Disney. But it was brilliant. It doesn't change the fact that it was brilliant. And yeah, I got to admit, my wife and I both watched the hell out of that market spot. Watching Zemo doing this just about killed me. Okay, next up. Thanks for that, Russell. Next up, we've got Brooks Kirk, who writes, hey, John, hope you're doing well. I am doing well, thanks. I do think that Zack Snyder Justice League did not have to be rated R. That said, the film does have content that warrants an R rating. 2 F-bombs, Steppenwolf cutting the Atlanteans in half, and his graphic death at the end. Thoughts? Thanks. Well, no, listen. When I say a movie, Rob, look, often when I say a movie didn't have to be rated R, what I'm not suggesting that there absolutely was a lack of any content in it that might justify an R rating, but rather say like Birds of Prey. Birds of Prey didn't need to be rated R. I felt like they kind of forced in a couple of things that caused the R rating, but it really didn't need to be rated R at all. Yeah, the F-bombs by letter of the law would kind of dictate an R rating in some ways. Although, let's be clear, this streamed on HBO Max. HBO Max doesn't have ratings. The MPAA does not bestow a rating upon movies going straight to streaming. That being said, mythical creatures can get cut in half all the time. Doesn't really make a difference. I've seen lots of shows about angels and demons, and oh hell, just go and watch Hannibal. Just go and watch Mads Mikkelsen and Hannibal. They literally had a body up on a makeshift crucifix with its skin ripped open, and they showed that on broadcast television. And things, so I don't besmirch it, but I just didn't need to have that. I don't know, Rob, you look back on that. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily needed it, but I think it was fine.
Oh
You
yeah,
know?
totally fine. Totally fine.
Yeah, but like you said, it's all marketing. And I have to say that what I really like is I like seeing people responding to the fan base or the viewers or the audience. And I always like it. Look, when I think I have to go back to like something like, say, Deadpool. If Deadpool didn't have the most knowing marketing to appeal to its audience, I think people look back at that and go, that was the way to market a film to the very audience that we expect to be watching.
Oh, it was one of the most perfect targeted marketing ever in movies. It was one of the most perfectly marketed movies ever.
Totally. And I feel that there's a lesson to be learned there. And I think that, we're still seeing the ramifications of that, well, even today. So, yeah.
All right, next up, we've got Great Grabthar's Hammer, who writes, "Hey, John, here's a kaiju matchup for you. Kong and Godzilla versus Starro." Of course, that's the DC character who popped up in the new upcoming Suicide Squad trailer. Also, 2 films for movies in 20 if you deem them worthy. Galaxy Quest and the masterpiece that is The Room. May the filthy ever be with you, Hobo John. All right, thanks a lot for that, Great Grabthar's Hammer. And, oh yeah, Starro. I mean, I can't wait to see it. I love that Suicide Squad trailer. I can't wait to see that. But I will let you guys know that we will not be doing movies in 20 anymore. I have, when I started up movies in 20, I said, I like this idea. So we're going to try it and we're going to see if you guys like it. And if you do, great, we'll keep going. And if you don't, well, that's okay. We tried it and we'll move on and try something else. While I think we did 3 great videos. I think the 3 movies in 20 that we did for Gladiator, Last Starfighter, and Mystery Men, I think they're great videos and they're great and fun to watch. But the reality is they've only got about like 10,000 views each. I mean, like one's got 13,000 whatever views. But it's just the amount of work and effort that it requires to put in. There's like, it took me like 2 days to write the script. It took me, when I was editing them, it took me like 3 days to edit. So there's like 5 days right there. It took me 2 days to write the script for the Gladiator one. It took Ray about 4 or 5 days to edit that. Ray edited that one. When you look at the amount of time and resources that needs to go into making them, getting like 10,000 views isn't enough. And what that told me was that while I got a big kick out of those types of videos, not everybody does. And so, that's been my whole career. Like everything from AMC and Collider and on, I am not afraid to try something new. And if it's not working, I'm not afraid to step back from it and move on and try something else. So yeah, I've pulled the plug on the movies in 20 thing, just because we just haven't been getting enough views on it. But we are still doing more editorial videos. And I'm very excited about the next one we're putting out. That's going to be coming out, I think, on Wednesday or Thursday. We're going to be putting the new one out. So I'm looking forward to that. But there you go. All right, let's move on here. Next up, we are going to Big Will, who writes, "Hey, John. I know video games don't have the best reception when it comes to film adaptation. That's an understatement. But what do you think about the Mafia video game series being made for film or TV, especially Mafia Definitive Edition has a cinematic feel to it?" Rob, I mean, for me, it's always this. It's irrelevant. It really is. I have come to the conclusion that you can name any video game franchise. It's completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter how good or bad the video game is. It really doesn't matter at all. We've seen some of the best video game franchises turned into some terrible movies. It doesn't matter. It's just like comic books, Rob. Dr. Doom, you're going to find very, very few people that will argue that Dr. Doom isn't one of the best comic book villains of all time. And they've put him in movies 3 times, and all 3 times it's been terrible. So it doesn't matter. All that matters is, does a screenwriter and a director come along that has a vision for the property to create something that is great on its own? And that's all that matters. Doesn't matter that Dr. Doom's a great comic book villain. Doesn't matter. That doesn't mean it's going to be a good movie. That doesn't mean he's going to be a good character in a movie. It doesn't matter. You can take some of the stupidest stuff ever. Who the F cares about Polka Dot Man? Who cares about Polka Dot Man?
Oh, you will, John.
But you put it into
will.
the hands of a James Gunn who may have a vision for it, and it could be awesome. I mean, I'm excited about it already. So when it comes to the video game question, it doesn't matter. Like, there's certain very, very few video games like a God of War or Last of Us. But that's so rare that that you can look and say, this definitely has cinematic potential. It doesn't matter if it's a great video game or a terrible video game. In the hands of the right director and writers, you could make something great. In the hands of the wrong directors and writer, it could be terrible. I don't know, Rob, what do you think about that?
Well, again, I've always believed that with the right story and the right character development or whatever, you can make any story interesting and any story good, but you have to have people that really know, like I think about Charlie Kaufman and movies like he wrote the Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, I think, and Adaptation and stuff like that. I'm like, who would have thought movies like that would work? But they did. Or I think about Spike Jonze's movie Her. You care about the romance between an operating system and Joaquin Phoenix.
Scarlett Johansson almost got an Academy Award nomination for that movie, and she wasn't even in the movie, other than her voice.
No, and I think what James Gunn, obviously James Gunn has a way of making us care. I mean, look what he did with Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, obviously Slither and Super painted the way and show what he's able to do.
Yes.
Again, not with big budgets, but with wacky characters and a good story. And he did the same thing. I mean, I keep thinking about the first time you meet Rocket and Groot and Star-Lord and Gamora. They're on what is it, Xandar, and they're in that outdoor mall having that big chase scene going after the thing that Star-Lord's recovered, I mean, I guess it's an Infinity Stone, right? It's hilarious. And it's an action scene, and you're watching a giant tree and a raccoon and a green lady and Star-Lord in a mall on a planet. Like, who would have thought that would work? But it does, because the characters are established and you love them. All I need to do is see Polka Dot Man saying, "We're all going to die." I hope so. Just that line. I mean, I'm in. I don't even care. I already care about Polka Dot Man. I've only seen the trailer. One line of dialogue, his delivery, and that's it. I'm in.
All right. Next up, we got Suthius, who writes, "Hey guys, as much as y'all have been longing to frequent cinemas again in the past year, have y'all been looking forward to heading back to Disney or Universal? I ask because the new Era Avengers campus will open on 6/4 at California Adventure, and it looks awesome." Yeah, actually, Ann and I were just at Universal yesterday, or no, 2 days ago. 2 days ago, I think. Ann and I were at Universal. We have been annual pass holders at Disneyland for 5 or 6 years. We've been very much looking forward to going back to Disneyland. So we're going to wait till it opens. We're going to see what their safety protocols are. If I think they look good, we'll go. Now, of course, Ann and I will both be fully vaccinated by then. I'm getting my second Pfizer vaccination in next week. Next week, I'm getting my second Pfizer vaccination. So I'll be all vaxxed up. But yeah, I do miss the parks, man. I really do miss going to the parks. All right, next up. Big Will writes, "Hey John, I'm a huge fan of Arthur Michael Connolly. He did Lincoln Lawyer and stuff like that. Anyway, I wanted to know your thoughts of the upcoming series finale of Bosch. Also, with Lincoln Lawyer show underway starring Manuel Garcia Rolfo, do you think they will do a Renee Ballard series starring Sophia Bush?" Well, listen, I'll be honest with you. I watched the first season. I might have watched the first 2 seasons of Bosch, but I did not keep up with it. I didn't keep up with Bosch. Also, the Lincoln Lawyer, I am looking forward to it, but it is kind of unfortunate because Lincoln Lawyer was set to go, I believe it was at CBS. It might be at CBS now, but forgive me if I'm getting that detail wrong. But before the pandemic, Rob, I don't know if you knew this, Lincoln Lawyer, the TV series, was set to go, I believe it was CBS. Our own Aaron Cummings had a full-time cast role in that show.
Yeah.
She was cast for a full-time role in that show. And then the pandemic hit, and a lot of the networks just axed a lot of their projects. Lincoln Lawyer was one of them. It went to a totally different network, And they did their own kind of tinkering with what the show was going to be and did their own casting, and now Aaron's out of it. So that was a big unfortunate thing that happened to Aaron on that one. But I haven't kept up with Bosch, so I cannot say whether a thing and what they may spin off from that. Again, until we actually see what this thing's going to be, it's impossible to say. I like Sophia Bush. I used to like her in that Chicago PD show, but yeah, I just don't have a take on that. Rob, have you been watching Bosch at all? Have you been keeping up with that?
Yeah, because I've read a lot of the books,
right.
And I love Titus Welliver.
I love him.
He's great. Also, he's a huge, as John Schnepp used to say, he's a huge sweaty. Like he collects Hot Toys figures. And I worked with him once on this thing and he, first of all, what a terrific guy, but total, as I call them, imagination connoisseurs. And I really love the show. And it's one of those things I catch up with after it's been like the season's out or whatever, the whole thing, and I'll stream it. But I'm caught up, and I'm bummed out that it's ending because I like the show. But I love Michael Connelly's L.A. noir novels, and I'm looking forward to whatever they do. And I like the Lincoln Lawyer movie. I watched it just the other day, like late night going to bed. I watch it on streaming, the Matthew McConaughey version, and I liked it. And I'd seen it. I probably watched that movie 4 or 5 times. Maybe I shouldn't have, but I like that movie. I like his performance. So anything they do with the Michael Connelly stuff, I'm in. Count me in.
All right, next up, we go to Ryan Lohner, who writes, once the pandemic is reasonably over, we need to get all the frontline workers together and tell them you bow to no one. Now, listen, I know several people who are frontline workers, and just what they have been through and what they have allowed themselves to go through to be of help to other people. You can't overstate it enough. Well said, Ryan. All right, Texas Boy writes, with all your hobbies, tech shows, sports, the MMA, TV shows, movies, video games, YouTube shows, you create 5 days a week, a marriage, reading, praying. I'm wondering, how in the world do you find time in your life to keep up with all this stuff? It's not easy. I don't often have a lot of time. It is, but listen, everybody's got work and family and hobbies and things they're passionate about. We all do. We all just find a way to manage our time, man. You find a way to make it all work, my friend. And then you make choices. Like I don't have room for everything I'd like to have in my life. I don't have room for it all. So you make choices about what you do want to have into it. And then you kind of just make it work. And if you can't, then you got to cut a few things out. All right, next up. Thanks for asking, though, man. I appreciate that. Calvin Cervero Pano writes, John, you talk sometimes about the Tom Holland contract being up. The news sites say No Way Home is the last one in his contract. Well, Tom Holland has confirmed that himself. But didn't the Sony/Disney contract guarantee Holland on one Disney movie, maybe an Avenger or even a Doctor Strange 2? Thanks. Well, Rob, unless I'm mistaken, yeah, Doctor Strange 2. That's the other character's MCU movie that he is appearing in. He's shooting that film, I believe, as we speak. They might even be done shooting it. I'm not sure. But you're going to see Tom Holland in Doctor Strange 2, and you're going to see Tom Holland in Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, that might be the final movies we see him in. There's several options here, Rob. Number one, it could be the final time we see Tom Holland as Spider-Man is in these two films. Option number two, it will be the last time we see Tom Holland as Spider-Man in the MCU, but we will see him continue as Spider-Man in the Sony universe. That's another option. Option number three is that Sony and Marvel will once again re-up their deal and extend this arrangement, which I'll be honest is the one I would like to see happen, because I think the movies that Sony and Disney have been putting together in partnership have been really enjoyable, and I've been having a good time watching these movies. So yeah, maybe we don't see him anymore. Maybe they extend the contract, or maybe we see him playing Spider-Man over for Sony, which is what Tom Holland was going to do back a couple of years ago when it looked like the Disney and Sony deal had fallen apart before they re-upped it. So yeah, it looks like these, for now, under the current deal, these are the last two movies. Rob, out of those three potential circumstances, which one do you think is going to actually end up happening? No more Tom Holland and Sony, or Sony and Marvel extending their deal?
Sony and Marvel are going to extend their deal.
I think so, too.
They're going to extend their deal because it's a win-win for everyone. I mean, look at how much money Venom made. You've got Morbius and Venom. There will be Carnage coming out. So they've got their own version. And the fact is, they're getting free marketing every time Marvel puts out a Sony movie that Tom Holland's in a Sony release film, because he's also in the MCU. So the very existence of the MCU is advertising for Sony. It's a win-win for everyone. And I think that they would be foolish not to extend the contract. I mean, where's the downside?
Yeah.
I mean, they're the ones, you know, they're still releasing the Spider-Man movies, and yet they're partnered up.
Unless Sony has like some grand plan for what they want to do on their end. But I agree with you. I think, I mean, I don't know, but I think at the end of the day, you're right. I think we are going to see that Disney and Sony are both like, we're all making a lot of money.
Right.
So why don't we just keep doing that? And I think that's probably what'll happen.
I do too, because and plus for the audience, why, if you were to say, sorry, Spider-Man can't be in the MCU anymore, well, that's not exactly what your audience wants to hear. I think that would be kind of another PR nightmare. Look what happened when we thought Spider-Man was being pulled from the MCU before.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom Holland's like, well, that kind of blows, you know, I mean, and, you know, I think also Tom Holland wants to take some time off. He said that he wants to like take a year off and be a young adult. And because he's worked nonstop since like 2015.
Yeah.
So you know, they'll do this Spider-Man thing. You got the new Spider-Man movie coming out. You finish the trilogy. You're gonna have Spider-Man in the MCU, and then he can take a breather.
Yep. I agree. I think that's the way it's gonna work out. All right. Next up, we got Max Vinicius Aruda writes, it was Crisis, John. Crisis changed Zemo's backstory. We're talking about how was he suddenly a rich kid? Anyway, on a non-related note, I genuinely liked I Am Number 4 and read the books. Is there potential for a TV series for them? Digimon as well. Why haven't they made a live-action movie about them? Well, we'll stick to the one question about I Am Number 4. Look, they tried to make a movie out of I Am Number 4. I thought the idea was good. I think it had some potential, but the reality is the movie tanked. And so once that happened, when they didn't make a terrible movie, the I Am Number 4 movie wasn't terrible. It wasn't anything super special to write home about, but it wasn't terrible. And it still completely tanked. So I think that kind of put a seal on it. Now, you never know. Studios are always looking for IP. Maybe they'll go back to it someday, but I think we've probably seen the last of it. Who knows, though? All right, next up. Wakanda Forever writes, wow, no spoilers. Falcon the Winter Soldier may have just surpassed WandaVision as my favorite show now. Unbelievable. Loved every second of it. Wakanda Forever. Again, to me, I have enjoyed Falcon and Winter Soldier, but I have not loved it until that episode. That latest episode for me completely changed the page, turned the page for me on that, and I cannot wait to see what they do with the next couple of episodes. Wakanda also writes, Bruce Lee and Brandon Lee, they made some of my all-time favorite films, martial arts action, Rapid Fire, Enter the Dragon, superheroes with Kato and the Crow. Looking back on their careers, it's pretty wild when you think about it. True legends. Rob, I'm going to say something very unpopular.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to say something very unpopular. But you know me, I don't care if it's popular or unpopular. I just give my honest opinion on things. And you can agree or disagree with me. I never thought Brandon Lee was very good. I never thought he was a very good actor. I mean, it was incredibly tragic. And lightning in a bottle happened with the Crow, and that worked out very well. But if I'm being honest with you, I actually never thought Brandon Lee was all that good. And that's why when they talk about doing a new Crow movie and people say, you can't possibly replace Brandon Lee, I'm like, yeah, can't you though? Anyway, that's just kind of my take. What do you think about that?
John, I think that mother is the name of God on the lips of all children, and it can't rain all the time. Come on, man. The Crow is like the goth equivalent of.
It's the Godfather of goth. It is.
It's the Godfather of goth. The same way that Bauhaus's Bela Lugosi's Dead is the Stairway to Heaven of goth. The Crow is The Crow and the Hunger are the end-all, be-all goth movies of all time. So I would never presume and I love The Crow, by the way. I love The Crow.
A lot of people do, yeah.
It's one of my favorite comic book adaptations. And I like, could you get somebody to perform better? Sure. Sure, and I'm with you. I mean, there are a lot of. Can you imagine Daniel Day-Lewis as the Crow? Come on, might be a little old now, but at the time, if you had the In the Name of the Father, Daniel Day-Lewis, he could have been Eric Draven, but he wasn't. But I no, and look, was Brandon Lee the greatest actor in the world? No, but he didn't have the time to develop into one. Unfortunately, his career was cut short.
Yeah, who knows where he could have evolved to? Who knows?
But I love me some Crow, John. I love me some Crow. Not eating Crow, but the movie The Crow.
A lot of people do. All right, next up, Shane Roxas writes, here's my $1 billion idea. Godzilla and Kong versus Cthulhu and the whole Lovecraftian mythos. Boom. You know what? Again, I'm going to say something unpopular. The Lovecraftian mythos isn't actually all that popular amongst pop culture. I'm not saying it shouldn't be, but it's not that. So I don't know that that's a $1 billion idea. I don't know, Rob, but what do you think? Do you think that would capture the imaginations of the wide audience en masse? What do you think? Do you think more people would rush out to see Godzilla versus Kong versus like Lovecraftian kind of mythology, or would more people run out to see them versus Jaegers from Pacific Rim? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, look, I love Lovecraftian mythology. I love Cthulhu. I love the old ones, the idea, but they're a little weird. The whole idea of Jaegers, to me, we've already got Pacific Rim. It generated a sequel. It was huge in Asia. And besides, Godzilla has a history of teaming up with robots like Jaguar to fight like Megalon. So I think people would look. I think we need Guillermo del Toro to make In the Mountains of Madness, which would be the ultimate. If you want to bring in the Cthulhu mythos, we need a movie first that establishes. I mean, there's been Lovecraft movies like From Beyond, or even John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness is kind of a Lovecraftian movie, but let Guillermo del Toro make In the Mountains of Madness. I don't know why they haven't, but Jaegers and Godzilla go together like chocolate and peanut butter.
I like that. All right. Next one up, we've got JMeister25 who writes, DC fans, hey, can we get some of that Snyderverse? Warner Brothers, nah. Marvel fans, hey, can we get the Zemo cut? Disney, hell yeah. Moral of the story, I just feel bad for DC fans. Is it just me, or does it feel like Warner Brothers doesn't respect their fans? Okay, Jay Meister, I'll tell you what. That is, that's nonsense. That's nonsense. I'll tell you why it's nonsense. Number one, if you don't know the difference, my brother, Jay Meister, you're my film loving brother. Come on. So let me talk to you like my film loving brother here. If you don't know the difference between the kind of commitment and what it would take to put out 3 more movies versus hire a college kid to edit together a little 30-second ad that you can put up on YouTube. If you don't know the difference between those two things, I don't know how to help you. There is no comparison between continue the Snyderverse versus throwing up a commercial for something. These are not equivalent. You cannot say one is the same as the other or anything like that. So there's that. Let's not compare those two, brother. The other thing is this. Rob, this is a larger problem with all film fandom. It's a larger problem with all film fandom. Everybody mistakes the tribe they're in as representing all the fans.
Yeah.
I have heard people say, the fans want this. And I have to stop my friends and say, wait, no, you want that. And maybe some like-minded people, but you do not represent all the fans. But that is a mistake people always make. Like, I've heard that, like, talk about the fans demand that Uncle Ben be in Spider-Man. No, you demand that Uncle Ben be in Spider-Man. A hell of a lot of the other fans don't care if Uncle Ben is in the Spider-Man thing. That's just the reality. A lot of fans don't. You do not represent the fans. And I'm sorry to tell you this, but the people who want Snyderverse continues do not represent all of the fans. Just like me wanting something like when I would talk about certain things from Supernatural, like, yeah, would I want a new Supernatural film? Yes, I'd love to see a Supernatural film, but I do not represent the fans. And that is a common thing among Star Wars fans, Star Trek fans, Harry Potter fans. Everybody's got their own position on something, and they say, well, the fans want this. It's like, no, you and a bunch of your friends and other like-minded people do, but you do not represent all the fans. So I don't know. Rob, what's your kind of take on that? Because I think this isn't just a DC thing. This is a Marvel thing. This is a Star Wars thing. This is an every fandom thing. We all got the same problem. I don't know. How do you see that?
Well, I love me fans. I've been one my whole life. But I think frequently what fans don't understand is the economic realities of making all the things that we're fans of. There's a lot of competing forces and different things and what's going on and who's making those choices. And when you see something like, look, Marvel, and especially you've got Kevin Feige, Victoria Alonso, and Louis D'Esposito, they can do whatever they want. They've earned the right. They're making money. They are very much in touch with their fan base. They've got their fingers on the pulse. And when they released that Zemo dancing video, which, by the way, was hilarious, I, as a fan, was like, it's too bad they didn't go into the dailies and get all of Zemo's dancing footage and recut some epic. That's what I wanted. As a fan, I'm like, well, all they did was give us the few shots that he was in and repeat them for an hour. So my fandom as a filmmaker and an editor, I'm like, they could have gone into the vault, got those dailies, and shown us all of the dancing footage. So I was like, it was fine, but they could have done a better job with that Zemo dancing video. That's where I was coming from. And I think a lot of fans we get something, like that Zemo dancing video, which that alone was hilarious that it was officially released. So you should sit there and go, wow, Marvel really, they've got their fingers on the pulse. But I'm sitting there going, well, it wasn't as good as it could have been. It could have been better. But
and isn't that what we do? We all do that.
And that's what I'm saying. I mean, we all do that. When we sit there, look, if something is bad, like when we watch, if you see bad characterization and bad storytelling, we can all bitch together. But frequently when we do get things that are good or great efforts or something, they go unrecognized. We always want more. And I think, look, everybody wants to sell their product. And make no mistake, John, movies are product. They all want us to love what they're making. They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars. If Batman v Superman doesn't make $1 billion at the box office, they wonder why. What did we do wrong? They want us to love what they're giving us. They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars making it. It's not like DC's going, screw those people.
Well, and here's the funny thing. And again, we've all done this. We have all done this. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody because we're all guilty of this. But I go back to what Jay Meister writes. It's like, man, DC doesn't respect their fans. Okay, first of all, you don't represent all the fans. Each one of us represents a segment of the fans. But what did Warner Brothers do? Even though it was completely counterproductive to the direction they're trying to go in, they went back. They spent $70 million so Snyder could make the Snyder Cut. They pulled in some of the actors in again to shoot new stuff. They made a 4-hour cut of the movie and put it out on HBO Max. And in return, they get fans going, you don't respect us. What the fuck do you want them to do? Do you want them to come over and give you a little reach around at night so you can go to sleep? Like they put up $70 million on a movie they've already moved on from, brought in actors, put months of work into it, brought in post-production people, and put out a 4-hour thing on HBO Max, and they have the audacity to go, they don't respect us. Come on. What more do you want? I mean,
by the way,
but we all do it. I'm guilty of it too. I've done this with my fandom on other things too. I do it too. And I look back at some of the way my little entitled fan part of me, and I look back at some of the things I've done and said and go, what the fuck was I saying? But we've all done it. It's part of being a fan.
I mean, I'm like, well, I'm not going to be happy unless the Snyder Cut's out on 4K Blu-ray and a Steelbook. Well, guess what? It's going to be. And I've got many, many choices of which Steelbook I want to buy. So There you go.
And again, Jay Meister, I say that as my film loving brother, man. I say that to you as my film loving brother because I've done it too. We've all done it. It's part of we as fans are often, and I speak for myself, we're often illogical. We don't really think something through, and I do it all the time, and we do it all the time, and I don't know, it's what we do. Anyway, listen, I just realized we've taken Rob overtime here. Rob, thanks a lot for being here.
Thank you.
Today, my friend, and for being a part of this. In the meantime, Rob, where can people follow you and your adventures online?
You can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM. Find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett, or find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work.
All right, dude. Thanks a lot for being here. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Have a good one.
All right, you too, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, the one and the only Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Make sure you check him out, and make sure you also check out his other projects he's got going on. Go look up the trailer for Tango Shalom. I think there's some online film festivals you can find that film. Also, make sure you go and watch that project that he's been working on for a long time, Dota, that's now on Netflix. He was a part of that as well. You can see his name in the credits and everything. Anyway, that is the great Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. We still have time here, though, today, so let's keep on rolling through your questions. Next one up comes to us from Scott Brown, who writes, I watched Wolfwalkers. I've been having a lot of people telling me about this. I watched Wolfwalkers on Apple Plus last night in prep for the Oscars. What an amazing movie. And the animation is so beautiful. To me, this studio is right up there with Laika and Pixar. Song of the Sea, Secret of the Kells, and Breadwinner are amazing too. Listen, I had never even really heard of Wolfwalkers. I mean, a little bit, but knew nothing about it. But lately, I've been having a number of you guys writing in to say, John, you got to go on Apple Plus and watch this Wolfwalkers thing. So I have got it on my queue. Thanks to you guys telling me and recommending it to me constantly. Probably by the end of tomorrow, I should have watched Wolfwalkers. So now I'm down to watch it too. So thank you guys for your recommendations, and thanks for throwing your support behind it as well, Scott. Appreciate that, man. All right, next up. Let's see here. Dex Star writes, hello, hope all is well. To the person that said a movie should be made with just Godzilla and Kong, you have to understand that if the idea was feasible, then in all of Godzilla's 66 years of films, it would have happened. Also, Primal has humans in it. It does. Yeah, so hold on a second. I'm just going to type something in here. Yeah, I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to ignore it. I'm not going to say anything. Anyway, yeah, so a lot of people have been bringing up the ideas, man, just make a Godzilla and Kong thing without any humans, but that becomes very boring and very stale very quick, right? You can't just have Godzilla going from one scene fighting a monster to the next scene fighting a monster to the next scene fighting a monster to the next scene. I mean, that would get very fatiguing very quick. The problem, I've said this before, I'll say it again. The problem is not that humans are in these movies. The problem is, in movies like Godzilla vs. Kong and King of the Monsters, they don't write the humans well. They don't give them important functional things to do that drive the story forward. They're just kind of there. A great example of that, and I'll talk about this in an upcoming video, Millie Bobby Brown, who I really like. I really like Millie Bobby Brown. And she gave a perfectly good performance in Godzilla vs. Kong. So this is no disrespect on her at all. But, sorry, there was no reason for her character to even be in the movie. Her presence in that movie did not affect the outcome of the narrative in any way. At least the little girl had narrative purpose, like the actions of the little girl and Rebecca Hall. Their characters were actually responsible for moving Kong from place to place and being where he needed to be and influencing Kong in the actions that he took. The Millie Bobby Brown character had no influence on the movie. Again, but I'll go into that in an upcoming video that we're going to talk about a bit. So again, the key is not to take humans out. It's just to do a better job writing them and having a better purpose for them being there while keeping the focus on the headliners, the monsters themselves. Anyway, that's kind of my take on it at any rate. Thanks for that, Dex Star. Next up, Dex also writes, hello again. Growing up as a film fan, it always bugged me that people who drag movie theaters every chance they got, even to this day, as soon as COVID started, here comes the haters. I've had bad times at them before, but I don't damn the whole industry. I mean, it's true. Look, there are people, it's about taste and preference, right? To some people, they don't like leaving the house. All good. I often don't like leaving the house, so it's all good. Some people like me truly value the true movie experience, which is being in a theater, giant picture, giant sound, surrounded by other film fans, having that shared experience that cannot be replaced by watching it at home. But it all depends. Like, it's as unique as the subjectivity of movies themselves. Different people experience things in different ways. So, I mean, it is what it is. Different strokes for different folks, I believe, as the old saying goes. So something like that. So it's whatever. All right, next up. Lil Mac 12 writes, "Hey, John, I'm curious if you've seen the trailer for the upcoming Netflix series Shadow and Bone. Somebody wrote in and asked about that the other day, actually. It looks incredible, and I'm not sure why it's not getting a lot of buzz. The cast is stunning. The visuals, story look even better. Have an awesome day." I will tell you what I said last week, like when I did see the trailer. I got to admit, I was not blown away by the trailer. I think it's interesting, and I like Ben Barnes. So seeing Ben Barnes in there is pretty cool. I think it's interesting, but I'm not going to lie. I don't think the trailer did a terrific job of really capturing my imagination and giving me a real sense of what is this about. And so I watched it and I thought, looks interesting. So I'm interested, but yeah, it didn't bump up my needle very much. You know what I'm always saying that the job of a trailer is to take however excited you are for a show or a movie, no matter how high or how low that excitement is, and bump it up a couple of notches. It didn't really bump up my excitement any maybe one or two little notches, but I personally didn't think the trailer was great. Hopefully the show will be. All right, next up, we go to Dad Jokes, who writes, "Hey, John. As an American Asian, I think it's quite funny to hear about your adventures with your mother-in-law." Of course, my mother-in-law, Anne's mom, is Filipino, of course. "This is an opportunity to teach your fans about Asian culture. Asians are often very blunt." True. "Also, specifically, Filipino culture is a matriarch culture." You know what's funny? Are you guys familiar with the comedian Joey Coy? Are any of you guys familiar with the comedian Joe Coy? He's hilarious. Joe Coy is absolutely hilarious, but I nearly laughed myself sick. Whenever he starts talking about his Filipino mom. "Joseph!" The way only he does it. "Joseph!" Because now that I am married into a Filipino family, and I have Filipino in-laws, when he starts, first of all, if you ever want to watch my wife Anne and Ray like nearly cry themselves into unconsciousness from laughter, it's watching Joe Coy talking about Filipino moms. It is some of the funniest stuff, and I don't know that I would be able to appreciate it as much were I not to have a Filipino stepmother, or a mother-in-law, I should say. Were I not to have a Filipino mother-in-law. It is truly hilarious. It is truly hilarious. And I am learning more and more. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I know a lot about Filipino culture. I simply don't. I think I know more about Filipino culture than the average person does, just because I am married into a Filipino family, but I have not been immersed into the Filipino culture of it all, right? So that's where I'm at, but it's certainly a great experience. I love my family. All right, next up, Dad Jokes writes, "Topic from yesterday: if you didn't have the time to make separate videos for $50 tippers, why don't you hire someone part-time to take your full video of the day and make edited cuts for those questions? I find it hard to believe you can't find somebody online." Well, here's the problem. All right, I think we're back up and running again. Sorry about that. OBS froze for a second. I am using OBS lately. For years, I've used Wirecast. I've been using OBS lately. It is a little bit more finicky than it sometimes is, but I think we are back up and running again. Anyway, I can't remember. I don't know how long I got into that question before everything's froze. So let me just start from the beginning on the answering that question. So we used to, when people would send in a tip of $50 or more, we used to do its own standalone video. The problem is that little program was more successful than I thought it would be. And we had a lot more people sending in those $50 tips than I was able to keep up. And pretty soon, before you knew it, we were like a week behind on getting those questions answered. And if people tip $50 to support the channel, they deserve me getting to their questions faster than a week long. So we discontinued it. Yes, we could just edit out from the main show, but the point was that if somebody was sending in a $50 tip, they deserve to have their own little video made from scratch. And since I didn't have the time to do that, I didn't think it was worth people's while just to have me edit out the thing. And so that's why I decided not to do it that way. But anyway, I appreciate the question. But yeah, they deserve to have their own standalone little 3 to 5 minute video made. And I simply didn't have time to do it anymore. So even though, listen, I got to admit, we lose out on a lot of money. We do. I'll just be straight with you guys. We lost out on a lot of money. No longer having that $50 thing, because we were getting way more of those sent in than we ever thought we would. And we were making a lot of revenue for the channel, which I was able then to funnel to equipment and our staff and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is if I can't get to them fast enough and I can't give our viewers the value they were expecting, I found that that was being disrespectful to the people who were sending in those questions that I couldn't get to them fast enough. And I never want to be disrespectful to the people who watch our show or to the people who are financially supporting our show. And so I thought, if I can't live up to it, and if I can't deliver what it is we're promising to deliver, then I just shouldn't do it at all. Even though we're making a lot of money on it, we just shouldn't do it at all. And so I decided to discontinue it. And maybe in the future, if I'm able to afford more help and get more help, and I do have time to do it, maybe we'll institute it again at some point. But for now, that's why we kind of cut the program. Okay, let's continue on here. We're going to keep things going now with Nerdy Teacher, who writes, "That's how it starts. The rage, the feeling of powerlessness that turns good men cruel. Alfred to John Walker." Still one of the best lines in a comic book movie commercial ever. I love that line that Jeremy Irons gives in that, "It turns good men cruel." I love that line. And it's very applicable to John Walker. You're right. Ron Fraser writes, "Fantastic episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier. Love the character building with Io. Zemo is now my favorite MCU villain. Don't know how Carly's arc will end, but I'm kind of rooting for her. Still sad to see the inevitable dark turn of John Walker." Listen, this is what I was saying a little bit earlier, Ron, was that when you look at the show, they are fleshing out and giving multiple dimensions to all the characters, the heroes and the non-heroes. Carly is like, yeah, you're right. Her quest is noble. Her cause is noble. She's trying to stand up for forgotten and unrepresented people. And her quest and her cause is noble. But she has now crossed lines that you can't take back. Blowing up buildings with people that you tied up and left in those buildings when you blow it up. There's not coming back. There's no, "I'm sorry." There's no, "Oops, my bad. Sorry." And you can probably attribute that to the super soldier serum that she took. It's bringing the dark parts out of her, just like it is for John Walker. But when you tie up people, throw them in a building and then blow up the building, even the other Flag Smashers was like, dude, that's cold, right? Then actually threatening the lives of Sam's sister and her children. I agree. This is one of the things I love about this show that they're doing really well, is giving multiple dimensions. There are different ways of looking at these characters. Her cause is just, but how she's going about it, she's a villain. I mean, that's all there is to it now. She is a villain. She is a murderer and a villain. And by the way, John D. Alf sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, John. Appreciate that, man. But again, Zemo, his whole philosophy about why there shouldn't be super soldiers, guess what? Every episode is proving that he's right. The Dora Milaje, they're messing up Sam and Bucky's plans to try to save the situation, but Zemo killed their king. And he's out running around free. Doesn't matter if it's to help you out or not. He killed our king. So you see things from their point of view as well. I love that they're giving us different perspectives on that. And I love the way they're doing it. I absolutely do, Ron. Excellent observation. All right, next up. Ron Fraser also writes, more thoughts. I'm more and more convinced that Sharon is the power broker. I'm getting there myself. I was really resistant to this thought last week, but after today's episode, this was of course on Friday, my opinion has changed. Also, I have no idea where this show is going, and I absolutely love it. Now listen again, I am not saying that guys, take it to the bank, Sharon Carter is the power broker. I'm not saying that. As a matter of fact, I would go out on a limb and say it is unlikely. The only thing I would say about it, though, is this. I have not heard a better theory. The Sharon Carter is the power broker is the best and most logical theory I've heard so far. I still don't think it's likely. I still don't think that's what it's going to turn out to be, but I haven't heard a better theory. All the dots connect, not perfectly, but the dots connect better with that theory than theories of Batroc the Leaper being the power broker. I don't buy that. I think there's too many logic problems with that. That Thunderbolt Ross is the power broker. I don't think that makes sense. I don't think that equals up. I've heard a number of theories and like none of them are great, including the Sharon Carter one, but it's just that the Sharon Carter one is the best theory I've heard yet. I have yet to hear somebody give me a real legitimate, makes more sense theory. Now, of course, there is one, which is it's nobody we've ever seen or heard from before. It's literally a brand new character that we've never seen or heard from before. That would make the most sense right now. But out of all the people that we do know, the Sharon Carter one is the best theory we've got. Out of all the bad theories we have, it's the best of the bad theories. But so we'll see where that goes, Ron. We'll see where that goes. All right, next up, we've got Matt Weber writes, John, quick tip. If you shave the wall around your TV, it will look bigger. Also, while I have a few characters left, what the hell is a jobber? I've never heard the term anywhere, but your show and Google gets me nowhere. Thanks. Love the show. All right. So you guys have often heard me talk about that the CW turned Superman into a jobber, and I hate them for that. What a jobber is, it's a wrestling term. It's a professional wrestling term. A jobber is a wrestler whose exclusive job it is to go in and make the other guy look good and lose to the other guy. That's a jobber. And there are professional wrestlers that was their job, man. It was their full-time gig. The Bronx Bomber, Steve Lombardi, a lot of wrestlers who it was their job to just go in and get beat up by the other guy and make the other guy look good and lose to the other guy. And they became known in the industry as jobbers. So you knew that when in this corner, weighing at 235 pounds, the WWE champion, Randy the Macho Man Savage. And in this corner, hailing from Toledo, weighing at 215 pounds, Ed Gray. You knew why Ed Gray was there. Ed Gray was there to get beat up by Macho Man and make Macho Man look good. He was, the industry term was, a jobber. And so that when you hear me say that CW turned Superman into a jobber, that's what he's there. Superman, the granddaddy of all superheroes, was only in Supergirl to get his ass kicked, to be humiliated, to make the other characters look good, and to lose. All the time. And they couldn't get enough of it. Every chance they had to humiliate and make Superman look bad, because they thought by making Superman look bad, they made Supergirl look good, they would do it. Even to the point that they had Superman say to Kara Zor-El to say, oh, the world doesn't need me. They literally had him say this in the show. They had Superman say, the world doesn't need me. It has you. I'm not needed. It only needs you. They constantly jobbed Superman in that, and it pissed me off to no end. Anyway, sorry. You guys know I can go off on this for like an hour, but I refuse to. And I'm going to stay positive because what they have done in this Superman and Lois show has completely redeemed this character. They have done even though I was very pessimistic and very doubtful, they have done a great job with this new Superman and Lois show, and I've been really enjoying what they've been doing. All right, guys, last question of the day. This comes to us from BK Dan, who writes, John, I just watched Terminator 3, my favorite of that franchise. I did not really care all that much for Terminator 3. Anyway, what is your favorite of that franchise and why? Well, that's obvious. One of the greatest sci-fi movies of all time is Terminator 2 Judgment Day. It's not just the greatest movie of that franchise. It is one of the greatest sci-fi movies ever in history. I don't know that I would have Terminator 2 in my top 20 of all time, but I think it might be fair to say I think Terminator 2 is a top 30. I might say Terminator 2 might be a top 30 film of all time. Not just sci-fi, but I mean like overall, might be a top 30, maybe top 40 all-time greatest film. I love that movie. So yeah, to me is no doubt it is Terminator. Anyway, guys, listen, there are still more questions to come from a man nicknamed Pooh Bear, Brandon, T3, the Wakandan Forever, and others. Do not worry. Me and Kimberly Curran are going to be doing a companion video later this afternoon. Kimberly's coming over in a couple hours, and we're going to get through hopefully all, if not all, at least the vast majority of the remaining of the questions. So if you guys send in a question, you haven't heard it answered yet, just come on back for the companion video later, and you will most likely hear Kimberly and I and get to it then. But for now, guys, that'll do it for today's John Campea Show. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day and spending part of your day here with us. A special thank you to all of you guys who sent in the questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it. And all of us here involved with the John Campea Show, thank you guys very, very much for your support. Remember, guys, to do still the four main things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.